I didn't get a chance to mention this on yesterday's program, but by now, most of you know that Dr. Fauci is retiring.
Happy days are here again. The skies above are clear again. Let us sing a song of cheer again. Happy days are here again.
This is Truth to Ponder with Bob Bierman.
One of the problems of producing a daily radio program is meeting the deadlines that I have to get the program out for distribution. And yesterday, right as the program was completed and it was already on its way to the radio stations and the podcast sites, well, there came this news story about good old Dr. Fauci. We've talked a lot about him over the past, 2 years. 2 years of Dr. Fraud, as I've called him. The man has been Mr. Doom and Gloom. Wear 2 masks, wear 3 masks, don't wear a mask. You know, he consistently, moved the target. He moved the goalpost every night. And how we're going to fight this infectious disease. Early on, many of you and myself and others felt there was something that was not quite right with everything that he was saying. So now we know that our so-called top infectious disease expert who made his claim to fame during the AIDS crisis of the 1980s plans to step down from his roles running the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases and even advising the White House as its chief medical officer at the end of this year in December. Now, of course, Fauci, as you know, you saw him on your television. I remember back when I was working in emergency management, every afternoon I had to get myself ready to watch the big daily press briefing from the White House. And he would get up behind that podium and just, usher the doom and gloom. He challenged President Trump on everything that many reputable doctors had said. And see, here's the problem with Fauci. The media, the mainstream, bought and paid for, corporately owned media, just worshiped the guy. They thought he was the greatest thing. And of course, they also thought the same about, Governor Andrew Cuomo, the love gov from New York, who was constantly wanting more ventilators, even though many doctors that understand pneumonia and viruses were saying, you do not treat bacterial pneumonia, which is what comes from COVID-19, with a ventilator. You treat the pneumonia. And I'm just going to come out and say it. Many doctors, and I believe what they have to say, because I know some doctors that have treated hundreds of patients successfully, by refusing to follow the CDC and Dr. Fauci type protocols. And their patients survived. If you got on a ventilator, your odds of living were less than 20%. You were done. If you had treated the symptom, which is the bacterial pneumonia, the odds are, as many doctors did, and of course they were kicked off of Twitter, they were kicked off of Facebook, they were accused of misinformation, they had their licenses and their practices and their incomes threatened. These same doctors, when approached about the fake, I call them fake because they're not really a vaccine, but these mRNA experiments, many refused to do it, and some lost their licenses. Many complied. And there's plenty of stories out there that remind us that some doctors, they're running around with fake ID cards. They never were vaccinated. They knew better. And so Dr. Fauci was busy trying to unseat the president of the United States. He didn't like him. Because, see, Dr. Fauci is a swamp creature. He loves living in D.C. He loved being the highest paid government employee. The man is worth millions of dollars. He has served 7 presidents, starting with Ronald Reagan, with the HIV/AIDS epidemic, West Nile virus, and all of it. And his fingers are all over the coronavirus, though he tries to deny it. I guess he is decided that the odds of the House being controlled by the Republicans are sufficient enough that he better blow out of town and do it quickly. He's all worried about pandemic influenza, bird influenza, Ebola, Zika, COVID, and now he's Mr. Monkeypox. A lot of monkey business going on with him. And I sincerely hope that he doesn't leave the country after he retires, because I really believe he has a lot to be accounting for to you and I. There were so many things that he knew, yet he would hold on to these lockdown mandates, destroying businesses, families. People committed suicide from all that they lost. So here we have Dr. Fauci finally retiring. Finally. By the way, Senator Rand Paul from Kentucky, he is a physician, and he has nailed Dr. Fauci numerous times. And what does the good doctor have to say to any congressman that ask him legitimate questions? Well, he got caught one time with a hot mic.
What a move.
And I hope the retiring doctor is held accountable. Now, I want to bring back my guest from yesterday, the Reverend Dr. Timothy Gahles. I want to continue our discussion about the Great Reset. We've heard about the virus and then monkeypox and this and climate change and all of it. And now they're beginning to talk about some food shortages. So if you cannot grow your own food, can't raise your own chickens, Dr. Gahles, what are we going to do? Do we have any options in this?
Right. Well, you've got two major entities that are working in conjunction to bring about this Great Reset. The WHO, is continues to work. Yes, continues to work to subvert national governments' constitutions while creating a global dictatorship in the name of health. Then you've got the World Economic Forum, which is now going out and saying we've got to change the distribution of food. We've got to get rid of, for the environment, of course, we've got to get rid of cows and chickens and pigs and everything.
Now do you think
every mammal?
Do you think a guy like Klaus Schwab is going to be eating crickets, or is he going to be eating Kobe beef?
Yeah, right. It's all for them. But see, that's for us. So then they want to give us crickets because, cricket, which is already appearing in food, in cheese puffs and other things.
Let me tell you, by the way, that look at a lot of the pet treats today.
Yeah.
They even call it Jiminy Crickets. And right there on the front package, they're talking about it's got pumpkin and crickets.
Well, here's
your
the
dog
thing.
will love it.
We talk about depopulation and we talk about these shots and things that are happening from that, but we're not created to eat insects. They have what they parasite called chitin, and chitin is only digested through like birds and other things who were designed to eat insects, but not us. And it causes ailments to us. It causes immune issues. It causes cancer of the spine, believe it or not, chitin, because you can't cook it out. You can't get it out of the insect. So by making us eat insects and telling us it's protein and it's good and all, they're actually killing us because you're going to get sick and die from this. It's not protein. It's not normal.
Would it be considered a cumulative effect over time?
Yeah, but it won't be much time because it's going to be in everything.
No, but what I'm saying is as you start eating it, it's not like you eat this stuff today and you croak tomorrow.
No, but it will be quickly because you will be, that's all you're going to, all the options you're going to have is going to have insects of one kind or another. And now you have movie stars, you have people promoting the eating of insects, on ads on TV and things like that, as if it's a good thing. Look, this is satanic. I'm sorry. This is the upside down world. They're promoting cannibalism now as normal. So God said he created the creepy things on the ground, not for us to eat. Okay. Mm-hmm. Don't eat the creepy things on the ground. He also said we're not to eat each other.
Yeah.
Because, so everything that God said don't do, Satan's going to say do. And here's the inversion that you and I talked about 2 years ago. The inversion of everything, right and wrong, good and evil, light and darkness. We're seeing everything inverted, male and female. We don't even know what that is anymore. I don't even know why the National Organization for Women exists when they can't even define a woman now. We've got serious mental issues going on because of this propaganda.
I'm going to take it a step further, and I've been really praying this one out. And this is where I think the church has been failing miserably for way too long. There are too many churches that are refusing to engage the culture. They just want to get along. They want to be left alone, so they never engage the culture. And the warning has always been, if you don't engage evil in the marketplace, evil will come after you inside of your four walls in due time. In other words, that same evil you're not opposing in government, that same evil you're not opposing at the school board level, that same evil you're not opposing in your city or town governments or your county governments, school boards, if you're not engaged in that fight, then they're going to come right into your home, into your church, into your bank account, and into your life, and you will have nothing to, you won't be able to stop it. You're allowing this. And so I'm saying, church, I don't care if you are Baptist, I don't care if you are Pentecostal, I don't care if you are, I don't, just name a denomination. If you are, some of them are actually all on board with all of this evil. And so they're apostate churches. Get out. Get out. If your church is more concerned about saving the planet than saving somebody's soul, then you're in the wrong church.
That's right.
And we see it. And this is just, but the evil, look at the anger in the face of people that are pro-abortion. There is anger. There is evil. They always have these wide eyes, and they're ready to pounce and kill. They want to kill.
They do. They want to kill you if you're opposed. There was a time we used to, say, hey, I disagree with you, you disagree with me. Next time the election comes, maybe my candidate will get in. We were that way. Now it's like, your candidate get in, we're going to kill people now.
We're going to kill your candidate.
The senators, we're going to murder people.
We're going to put them in prison. Listen, I don't care. You can talk about the evil things done, the things people should not have done on January the 6th, 2021. But I really believe the FBI is the one that goaded it, made it happen,
Absolutely.
And forced it.
A complete setup.
It was a total way because they knew that they did not want this election result ever studied, because if it is studied and the truth ever came out, we would be having people demanding public executions.
Yeah,
and I really think that people like Peter Strzok, who I don't think ever really worked for the FBI, I think he really is a CIA plant.
Probably.
I mean, it makes sense, because notice, he's still around talking with money in his pocket, and somehow he no longer works at the FBI, but he's still a thing out there, and he's still, he still is, what's the term I'm looking for? He's still smug. He's still like, hey, I got mine. You don't worry about me, man. I'm still, I think he really never was paid by the FBI. I think that he worked for either both agencies. Yep.
Which are owned by the same people. Look, when it comes down to it,
Brenner and Clapper.
The same people who call for the reduction of world population all are in agreement that the United States has to go to bring in this world government, to bring in this reset, to bring in this, this build back better. The U.S. is standing in the way, and they've got to get rid of it. And they're coming at it from many points of light, as Bush would say.
Yeah.
They're coming at it from many directions right now. The food distribution, the economy, everything they possibly can. The elections, infiltrating all over the place. We've got very real fears of things coming about through China, through Russia, even in this country. So we have been thoroughly infiltrated, but we still have at least 80 million Americans that are waking up and seeing this and saying, oh, no, this is like, the last stand.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got the agencies trying to promote civil war. Don't fall into it.
Let me give you an example. What you're talking about, how our freedom has been eroded.
Oh, yeah.
I was thinking, it was 50 years ago that I had graduated high school. I was working all that summer, saving money. I was going to be heading on to a tech school in Ohio. But a few times over that prior year, because I had a car and I could drive, some of my friends and I, because it wasn't that long of a journey, used to hop in the car and, head down the New York State Thruway and then, head to the Peace Bridge and on our way up toward Toronto. Because there's only like a 3-hour drive. And, it's an hour and a half to Buffalo. And if you just want to go into Canada for an afternoon, or, we could leave like at 7:30 in the morning and be home by 5 in the evening, having spent 6 or 7 hours in Canada.
Right.
And back then, I really believed, as free as the United States was. Now, listen to me carefully. I felt something 50 years ago that the Canadians might even have a bit more freedom than we did at that time, 50 years ago.
Right.
And they were very complacent, very easy to get along with people. They were not as political, but all that changed. And as I look back over history, it started when they began to have socialized health care, that all of a sudden people became more engaged and more dependent upon the government.
Yeah.
And gradually, generation by generation, one school class after another, the level of indoctrination increased to the point that there are not that many people that have critical thinking skills. We in the United States are only about 10 years behind Canada, maybe 15 at max. But I think with what has happened with COVID, we have sped the process up.
We've also dumbed down the people. We know that. But listen to this. Over 37 million Americans, that's over 13%, are taking dangerous psychotropic antidepressant medication for a diagnosis of chemical imbalance, which they just came out and said doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
Chemical imbalance doesn't exist. So why are these people taking the drugs then?
Hey, I got one for you. On this, I think, knowing your study and research, you're going to jump on this one. I've been doing a little bit of reading myself. And, we talk about one of the big crises of young kids today is childhood obesity. Mm-hmm. And I think, back when I was, 50 years ago, I could count on one hand with fingers left over how many times I went to a fast food place in the course of a year.
Right.
I mean, I just, to me, going to Wetzel's Hamburgers or McDonald's back in those days was something you did in pure desperation. You had nothing else to eat, and it was quick. It wasn't, and for a little child, yeah, it's a big treat. If you've been good, you're going to get your little hamburger, fries, and milkshake. But that was like once a month, maybe once, it wasn't an everyday thing. Now you got a bunch of pot-bellied people going into McDonald's. They're in the drive-through windows now because they're too fat to get out of the car to walk in. And they're getting they're getting the Big Mac and, supersize it. And then what do they wash it down with? A Diet Coke.
Right.
Okay. Well, what is one of the great triggers of some of the mental behavior issues like depression and bipolar disorder? It's the sweeteners in that stupid Diet Pepsi, Diet Coke, or Diet Mountain Dew, whatever diet garbage you're drinking. You're drinking this to the destruction of your own mental health. And now we got a bunch of fat kids. And I'm sorry to be mean like this. I was a bit overweight when I was a child, but I outgrew it. And which is a normal process. And I wasn't morbidly obese. I was just, a few pounds over as a child, and that disappeared quickly till, if anything, I was underweight for years. But that's all right. That's how the body works, stored up. But now we got kids that are like 16, 17, 18, 19. They got beer guts on them like they've been guzzling, suds for, for the last 25 years.
And this isn't an accident. I mean, food has been a weapon for a long time in the hands of people. And they're using it to dumb down, to make us lethargic and not able to do anything in this country. I mean, they're coming at it from many. If you look at pictures from the 1970s in the beaches in California, and rarely do you see an overweight person. Rarely. But now, almost everybody is.
But see,
rarely do you see a thin person.
Back in the 70s. Back in the 70s, yeah. If I, when I was in college, went to Coney Island, sure, I would have a hot dog. Sure, I would eat that, terrible, food. But that was the only time I ate it in the course of maybe a month.
Right.
Other than that, I was eating, without realizing it, I was on a healthy diet because that's what I preferred. I preferred real food. I didn't like this. I used to think some of this hamburger stuff from these hamburger joints was awful. It just didn't taste right. It just tasted fake. The only thing that would attract you were the French fries.
Right. Well, see, food has always been a weapon. And even the slave class in Rome, or, the slaves were given some vegetables and maybe once in a blue moon a piece of meat. Mm-hmm. But the meat was reserved for the priest class and the elite and the wealthy and so forth, not for the common folks and the slaves. The same thing is happening now. Slavery is a thing. If you listen to Catherine Austin Fitts, who I respect very much, she very much financially, I respect her views, but she also sees this. Slavery is here in a huge way, and it is happening unbelievably, but they want us to eat garbage. They want us to drink recycled sewage. They want us to eat bugs and each other. If people cannot see there's something wrong with this, then there really is something wrong with you mentally. Because this is a spiritual battle. And the weapons of this warfare, folks, are not carnal. And we better get on our knees and asking God to give us enlightenment and show us the way through this, because the times are getting dark fast.
If you look out there today, and let's talk about those that are between the ages today, I'm not going to get too young, but let's say starting at age 8 or 9, ADHD diagnoses are through the roof. But most important is that bipolar has become a thing.
Right.
And I just don't remember ever hearing that term in 1968. It just didn't exist.
I know.
You had kids that were probably a little bit hyper and very active. And, there's nothing wrong with it. Learn how to channel the energy. I mean, if anything, my parents would look at me and say the same thing. I had the same tendency. So what did my father do? He channeled those energies into productive hobbies. And so I could use my mind for both school and a hobby, and there was a nice balance struck, and I slept well at night. I mean, did I eat fast food back then? Virtually never. I didn't even know what it was. But I also had something else a lot of kids today don't. I had chores and responsibilities. Yep. A lot of today's kids, my child is just not capable of doing that, so I take care of washing the dishes because they just don't know how to do it right. And so they never learn. They don't learn anything. Right. And then they go through school and they get socially promoted. I've seen it over and over again, even with families and people that I know firsthand.
Let me tell you, when my father's voice was raised to a certain octave, you wouldn't believe what I was capable of doing.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he didn't hit me or anything, but when he got upset or he asked me to do something and if I blew it off and he raised his voice, you watch how quick I jumped into action and did what I had to do. Now,
all of us
we don't want to hurt these children. We don't want to, really stunt them by yelling or raising our voice. And that's too masculine. It's toxic masculinity.
I know. And the idea of masculinity is being decimated.
Absolutely.
For a reason.
Absolutely.
For a reason. I mean, we are effeminizing the male species systematically. Yep. I mean, look, Rachel Levine, it's really Richard Levine. You'll never be a Rachel. Your DNA will betray you. You've been surgically altered. Your mind has been ruined. You are given over to demonic spirits to be able to think that I'm a woman. And to look at you wearing a dress and pretending you're a rear admiral or whatever you are today, I don't know. It is just disgusting. It's repugnant. Yet those that are clapping and adoring this, they are also under this mass delusion.
I watched a woman on TikTok. Somebody sent this to me. I don't watch TikTok, but they sent this to me, and it wasn't a joke. This was a woman who self-identified as a cat. And she has a child, too, which she teaches to be a cat. And she gave these certain meows for the things she needs. Like if she has to go to the bathroom, it's this type of meow. And she made a meow sound. And if she wants to go out, there's this type of meow. If she's happy, there's this type. And I'm looking at this person saying, this person is mentally ill. Mentally ill.
But if you say that,
you're looking at them as
you're hateful.
brave.
And see, no, she's thoroughly normal. Maybe look. I've said this before, and I'll say it again for those that are new listeners. I can remember I had a granddaughter, and when she's a cute little thing. Of course, she's a lot grown up now, but which made me a great grandfather, believe it or not. But when she was, I was teaching her how to swim when she was very young. And she fell in love with the idea of, remember the Little Mermaid stuff that was out at the time? Right. She so fantasized that I want to be a mermaid. And she was like age 7, maybe 6 or 7, somewhere in there. Well, we have people today that are saying when somebody at that age is saying, I'm a boy, but I want to be a girl, or I'm a girl and I want to be a boy, we're supposed to act on that. And there's this teacher that was bragging about her second grade class. This one young person came and said, I'm really a boy. And she was so thrilled. And then she finds out when the class heard about it, every one of them was in the wrong gender. My entire class of second graders, and she's bragging about this, I'm going to help them all transition. Now, did I help my granddaughter transition to becoming a mermaid by chopping her legs off and splicing on fins? Of course not. This is the stupidity. And, that we're supposed to listen to children are impressionable at that age. They live in a fantasy world as they're supposed to, as they're beginning to discern the world around them. And they're not ready to make life-altering decisions. That's why as parents, we step in and guide them and help them. Let them enjoy their little fantasy as they move from one to the other. And the next thing you know, they want to be an airline pilot or a rodeo person or a fireman, or an astronaut or whatever the case may be, or a doctor or a nurse. We go through these phases of life, and now we are being told that somehow this child at the age of 6 has all the intellectual capacity to know that I'm biologically the wrong gender. And we must use chemicals and big pharma and big medicine to fix it. How evil do you think we can become? If we can do that, how much more evil can we become as a people?
We can be very evil. And the thing is, there's nothing new under the sun. So we revert back to what society has done in the past, right? You've had infanticide. We're there again. You've had, discarding of people and children and sex slaves and of kids and trafficking. It's the biggest business in the world right now. Society is descending into darkness rather quickly. But isn't that more of a call for you and I to be lights? Isn't that more of a call for you and I to stand up and be counted, to show courage and to speak truth, no matter the cost? You can use wisdom in speaking it, but do not hide it. And do not hide your light under a bushel or under a table, but let it be seen by those around you. Those are the things we need to do. And I pray God more of us would.
And with that, Dr. Gahles, we need to take a short break here on the program, Truth to Ponder. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes with the Reverend Dr. Timothy Gahles. And Dr. Gahles, you're right. We need to be light. The Bible says specifically we need to be salt and light. What that really means, salt back in the time that Jesus walked the earth was known as a preservative. A preservative. And of course, light is self-explanatory. The Bible also teaches that evil and sin love darkness. and people that do evil deeds prefer doing them in the dark. We need to be the salt and light of this earth as Christians. That is our calling. And when the salt has lost its savor, when you've hidden your lamp, what good are you for the church? Too many churches are failing, I believe, in engaging the evil in our world around us. We may not be able to fix it, but the Bible says we should stand up against it. And too many churches have capitulated. Well, we don't want to get involved in that fight. We might offend somebody. Better to offend somebody than have that somebody end up in hell. Let's be really blunt. I'm sick and tired of coward churches hiding in their four walls, doing their little thing, having their little group therapy, for lack of a better way to describe it, complaining and bickering, but doing nothing in their society and refusing to be salt and light in this world. That's why this radio program is here. We attempt to be salt and light, one of many that God has raised up. We're not the biggest or the best or whatever. We're just one voice. But this one voice now needs your support more than ever. This summer has been the first difficult time we've had in our 2-year run. And I know the economics are terrible right now. I get it. The bill passed by the House and the Senate, signed by Biden, will be very destructive. But if you can help us out, would you write a check made payable to Ancient Word Radio? Ancient Word Radio. The mailing address is Truth to Ponder, 5753 Highway 85 North. That's 5753 Highway 85 North. And we have a secure box. That secure box number is number 3248. So on that line, you write 5753 Highway 85 North, a little space, and put in 3248, Crestview, Florida. One word, Crestview, Florida. And the zip code in Crestview is 32536. That zip code again is 32536.
This is Truth to Ponder with Bob Bierman.
Josiah's surprise and your destiny. Shalom Aleichem. This is the nice Jewish boy, Jonathan Kahn, your Jewish connection, bringing you the riches of your Jewish roots in Jesus. Now get your pen out as fast as you can so you don't miss out on receiving a special free gift you're going to get and love in a moment. The story of Josiah, the good king, he launched a revival in Israel. He cleansed the high places. He saw a tomb while he was cleansing the high place. He said, "What's that?" He said, "Well, that's the tomb of the prophets, of the bones of the prophet of God, who rebuked this site centuries ago and who foretold that one day you would come to cleanse this place." Imagine being Josiah and finding out that you had stepped right into the destiny of the Lord and that it had been foretold centuries before that you would come. Amazing. Well, the Bible says that man's steps are ordained of the Lord. Not just for Josiah, not just for him, but for all, for you. You see, there's a destiny over your life, just as high, just as holy, just as perfect. And as you follow God, and only as you follow God, can you fulfill it. More and more see the awesome wonder and mystery. Get your life more and more into the will of God, and you'll be amazed how you start seeing things becoming fulfilled. Walk in the footsteps. You will walk in the footsteps already laid out, because it says there are good works he has prepared beforehand that you might enter into. They're already waiting. Your life is waiting. Your destiny is waiting. It's all there. The only way to get there is to follow the Spirit, follow his righteousness. And you too, like Josiah, will one day be blown away to see how it was all there, foretold and purposed, your life from the beginning of time. Want more? Ask for Up on the Rooftop on CD. Now, how would you like to receive daily special meditations, teachings with the riches of your Jewish roots in Jesus to give you victory for every day of your week, and updates on Israel and prophecy, a free subscription to Sapphires, and the incredible Mystery of the Temple Doors, all free? You'll love it. How do you get all this? Easy. Just remember Jesus' real Hebrew name, Yeshua, and you dial it. That's it. Just call 1-800-YESHUA-1. You will be blessed, but call now, 1-800-YESHUA-1. Now, I invite you to join me in the Great Commission to bring salvation back to the Jewish people and to reach millions of unreached peoples around the world on 5 continents. How? Just call 1-800-YESHUA-1. It's amazing. It's the farthest way you can ever spread the gospel. Shortwave radio, you can make an impact on the world, your life. Just call 1-800-YESHUA, YESHUA-1. Or write to me direct. It's right to the Nice Jewish Boy, Box 1111 in Lodi, Lodi, New Jersey, 07644. It's a Nice Jewish Boy. It's Box 1111. It's Lodi, Lodi, New Jersey, and it's 07644. Till next time, this is Jonathan Kahn saying, walk with a king and you will fulfill your destiny. Shalom Aleichem. Peace be to you, my friend, and Messiah, Melech Malchim, the King of Kings.
This is Truth to Ponder with Bob Bierman.
And welcome back to part 2 of Truth to Ponder for this Tuesday. My guest in a moment, the Reverend Dr. Timothy Gahles, will be talking some more about some of the topics of interest to all of us and that should be a concern to all of us. Now, as we come into this segment of the program, I've been really concerned about education in our nation. It has become a propaganda piece in way too many school districts. Now, you may think your school district is safe, and there are probably still a few that are in public schools. But increasingly, even in somewhat conservative states, that is not always the case. Don't assume because you live in a conservative county that your school will actually be in tune with your values. You're going to find out they're not. If you look around the internet hard enough, you'll find a lot of strange stuff out there. This is a teacher. And, school is beginning to open up around the nation during this month of August, and by, just in September, they're all open. And I want you to listen to what this teacher is saying.
I'm in my classroom getting it ready. We are officially 1 week away from having students back in our school. I've been getting a lot of questions about how educators can create queer, safe, and inclusive classrooms for LGBTQIA plus students, so I thought I'd give you a couple of ideas. One of the most impactful things you can do, in my opinion, is show your pride. Even something as subtle as a little rainbow flag or queer resources for your students lets them know that you're a safe person for them to come to if they need. On the first day of school, or whenever you do introductions, make sure that you give students an opportunity to tell you what name they'd like to go by and what pronouns they use. Sometimes these things don't match with their official school records. Incorporate queer authors, artists, historical figures into your lessons.
Now, understand, this has been going on for quite a while, and it's just been ramping up over the past several years. And with the pandemic keeping our attention away and worrying about dying of a virus if you don't wear a face mask or some other such nonsense, or getting vaccinated to keep your job, these reprobates that are now teachers in, no longer just the colleges, no longer just in high schools here and there. They worked their way into middle school. Now they're in elementary schools. And yes, you'll even find them in kindergartens and preschools attempting to, groom children to follow into the sin that they want them to participate in. This is what we're fighting. It's not just a virus, it's not just the lies, it's not just the deep state. We are also dealing with the perverted state. A very dangerous state. My guest today on the program is the Reverend Dr. Timothy Gahles. And as we come back into this segment of Truth to Ponder, now I want to discuss this very dangerous trend with my guest, the Reverend Dr. Timothy Gahles. We now know that they have worked their way into virtually every part of education. And so what kind of issues do you see, what kind of dangers do you see coming down the road with our students and our families?
Yeah, you're in for a big problem because, again, we talk about education, and every dictator in history knew that you had to educate the preschool kids and the young ones in order to have a compliant people. Recently there was I think yesterday, there was a film that on news about a teacher who was very upset, actually a principal of a school, very upset that a father sent a note with his 4-year-old into school saying, my child is not to wear a mask. Do you know the principal? They show the kid with the note in his hand from his father, 4 years old. Mm-hmm. The principal calls the police, who come and arrest the 4-year-old child.
And once again, this is what angers me. These school districts are making a political statement, not any scientific medical statement at all. There is not one study, not a one.
This is about compliance. This is the boot on the face.
These reprobated-minded teachers that are basically delusional, as 2 Thessalonians says, to their own damnation. I'm going to come out and say it, unto their own damnation. Absolutely. These reprobate, God-hating, evil, homosexual, thinking that every kid should either be gender transitioned or become a homosexual one. Then that's the only acceptable pathway. Have you ever stop and think about this before I forget? Many, many years ago, the gay community said, just tolerate us. Then years later, would you please just accept us? We'll leave you alone. And then the next phase was, would you embrace what we do? And now we've moved to where evil always takes it. You must worship us as your gods because we are better than you.
Right.
We now have a month where we get to torque and twist and do obscene things on the sidewalks of your cities in the name of love. And you must, and you can't condemn us because it's all love. We're teaching our children. You have teachers with pride flags in public schools.
Library story time hours. I mean, and kids are going in there and looking at these people, and many of them are being arrested for pedophilia, for all sorts of grooming of children. That's all this is grooming of children.
And then the mass compliance you were talking about.
Yep.
These school districts, they are so delusional to believe that, little Jimmy there, if he doesn't wear his face mask, I'm going to die of COVID. Even though I'm quadruple vaccinated, wearing 2 face masks and a face shield, I'm still going to die if Jimmy doesn't wear a face mask. I mean, this is the insanity.
They push these things. They push the gender bending drugs and surgeries, and yet when you have a plethora of these individuals now who've had the surgeries and are now saying, I screwed up. I really screwed up. Now my body
what is the rate of suicide among that group that realized they made it 44 times higher?
That's right. And the news media won't cover them really at all.
That's negative. You can't say anything bad about it because transgenderism is the thing.
You have an agenda. We don't want facts to get in the way.
Well, and
that's what it comes down to.
I mean, over the past 2 years or 2.5 years since COVID began, and, Dr. Fauci, if you remember, and if you'll pause for a second with me, was on 60 Minutes. And I want to play for you what he said, 2.5 years ago about wearing a face mask.
When you're in the middle of an outbreak, wearing a mask might make people feel a little bit better, and it might even block a droplet, but it's not providing the perfect protection that people think that it is. And often there are unintended consequences. People keep fiddling with the mask and they keep touching their face.
Okay, there's Dr. Fraud Fauci, and I call him that because he is a liar. I'm sorry, but the man is an unmitigated liar. He lied to the American people. He did it for money, fame, and power. So he says, don't wear a mask. He was being honest. And then, right after Joe Biden is inaugurated, this is what he had to say.
We get asked all the time, should we be double masking? The CDC makes recommendations based on data that they accumulate because it's a science-based organization. Right now, they are looking at these different options of mask wearing. In the meantime, as I often get asked, should you be wearing 2 masks or 1 mask. And I say there's no recommendation. However, there are many people who take the common sense approach. If you're talking about a physical barrier, and as the CDC recommends, you want at least 2 layers within the mask as a physical barrier, and you feel maybe more of a physical barrier would be better, there's nothing wrong with people wearing 2 masks.
Okay, there you heard it. What he said back in 2020 and what he said a little later in 2021. I think he was telling the truth in 2020. And you're right. I think the handlers got to him to tell him to change his tune. So let's pause here for a second and realize that he told the truth, I believe, in 2020, and he lied in 2021. He based what he said in 2020 on like 40 or 50 years of studies all over the world that prove that in the presence of a virus, a face mask is worthless. You can find other quotes from people even at the CDC saying the same thing over the past several years. Hey, even Dr. Birx made the same statement, that a healthy person is not helped at all by wearing a face mask. You're still going to get the virus. If a face mask had been useful in the presence of a virus, we would have been doing it for the last 30 years.
That's right.
But we knew that it was worthless. Look, a face mask, I remember one of the propaganda pieces that came out from the state of, I can't say because I worked for them at one time, why we should wear a face mask. And they had some guy sneeze in a Petri dish or cough into one with a mask, and then somebody without a mask into another one. You know, they did this. And, of course, the next day you see all this bacteria growing, ugly bacteria. And they're trying to make you believe that a virus and a bacteria are the same thing, when, in fact, a virus is 1/1000th the size of the smallest bacteria. Now, right. the face mask is worthless. If anything, it makes it more of an aerosol coming through the face mask than if it was just coughed and heavy to begin with.
Like I always say, just imagine spitting at a chain link fence.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's about as good as a face mask. It's just going to go right through it. And this is what we see happening. And I've talked to doctors that I know very well. And I've said, you and I know that if there was a deadly virus in this room, we're both wearing face masks, we're both going to die. And he looks at me and goes, yeah.
Well,
exactly.
Stop and think. Look, the CDC finally has admitted, and they're backtracking every week a little bit more. They don't want to lose all of their credibility. And they're doing it on what I call the weekend dump, where no one really pays attention. Well, the idea of being 6 foot apart, you don't have to do it anymore because it never worked.
That's right.
And you go to some stores, they still have those stupid things on the ground, the stand here. They're 6 foot apart. Yep. And I was in a grocery store a couple of weeks ago. They're getting ready to clean the floors, and they're finally taking those stupid things up for good. Right. The 6 foot markers. And everybody had to wear a face mask, a 6 foot marker, and then we had the directional arrows in grocery stores. You go this way and then that way, but you can't go this way. They had arrows in all these weird directions. The CDC has admitted quietly that every bit of it was worthless, useless, and a waste of time, and it didn't do any good. Period.
No, it wasn't science. Like we said 2 years ago, this only had to do with compliance. It was a simple test to see who in society would comply to these stupid rituals, which is what it is, a ritual.
So you take Fauci and his like 40 some odd years or more of experience as a doctor and all his years at med school and all the studies that he has seen, and he was honest in basically early March or late February of 2020, no, you don't need to wear a face mask. Well, then he made the lying excuse because it was not an issue. Well, we just want to make sure we can get the PPE stuff to those in the medical field. So you're willing to lie to people that you don't need a face mask and let them all die because you didn't have enough elsewhere. Why didn't you come out and say, we don't have enough face masks, so stay home? I mean, you could have done that, but no. Yeah. You told the truth, and then you had to backtrack on the truth and then begin to lie, and then by 2021 is where 3 of them.
CDC is backtracking on the social distancing now. The CDC is admitting to botched COVID responses. The CDC is also admitting that the claim that spike protein doesn't last long in your body is BS. It lasts a long time. As a matter of fact, they're not sure how long it lasts.
It could last until you die, and you may die sooner.
And what did we say 2 years ago? The spike protein it's a factory. It's manufacturing these toxic spike proteins on a continual basis, and there's no off switch. There is no off switch. We said that. We said that.
Alex Berenson, who got, thrown off Twitter and other places at the behest of the Biden administration, we're now beginning to learn, for telling the truth about, look, here's a guy whose politics I probably do not agree with. But here's a guy that was honest enough to lose his job at the New York Times when he began to expose this stuff doesn't work. This stuff is not going to work like they claim. And this stuff may have some really bad adverse side effects they don't want to talk about. So when you look at and forget the raw numbers, you got to be fair in comparison, percentages within a group. You know what I mean when I say that? Percentages within a group. Now, the smaller group is the unvaccinated, but even as a percentage within the group, they're not the ones coming down with second and third cases of COVID. If they had COVID, that's the end of it for them. It is the more you've been vaccinated, the more likely you are to come down with a second or third case of COVID or a relapse.
That's right, because your immune system is being destroyed with each and every shot. It is destroying your immune system. That is being shown over and over, and people are being told, no, it's going to help you for 2 months maybe, but at least it's going to help you. It's a booster.
Now, what's the next lie? What's the next big lie? Oh, it'll make your symptoms milder.
Right.
Well, let me explain. I think you and I figured this out a year ago when Delta kind of came and went really fast. And all of a sudden we heard of Omicron. Right. Omicron by the fall of 2021. And people that really knew their stuff, that had been right all along, said this is, granted, they believed it was, some people say it was manufactured probably by the Chinese to put an end to this stupid pandemic, except where they wanted it to be, because they wanted to have control. And so this is the normal progression, just sped up immensely. Yes. Of a virus. In other words, it becomes vastly more infectious. They wanted infection numbers. They just didn't want everybody keeling over and dying of COVID.
Right.
So what do you give? What do you get? What a virus normally does, as Alex Berenson says, a virus it's just going to virus. That's what they do.
Yep.
And so it becomes more contagious, but less, deadly, less symptoms.
Yep.
People that are coming down with Omicron, they have symptoms for a matter of days, not weeks. And the only lingering one tends to be, in some people, fatigue for another few weeks.
Yeah. The shot has nothing to do with the virus. The shot is what Moderna said. It's an operating system. And each booster is really just them giving you a new a new operating system. They're enhancing what's already in you, the biotechnology. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing a biosecurity state evolve. We're seeing the biotechnology being developed. We're seeing biosensors put into the human body and transhumanism. Man, as Klaus Schwab said, merging with machine.
And and his buddy there, Yuval Noah Harari, is and I'll do a program maybe later this week on him again. He is. You may not know him, but you really need to, because he has got the ears and the hearts and the minds and the control of those that control this planet right now. They're listening to him. And, you got to remember, Justin Trudeau is a graduate of that school.
He's the advisor to Schwab, right? His name adds up to 666. I'm not saying he's the Antichrist, but what I'm saying is it's funny because the guy is totally against God.
Yeah,
he's totally
but he makes the statement that everybody in Satanism would say: we are going to be gods. We are going. Yes. The cloud is not the cloud where your phony fake God lives. It's the cloud in which we are building that we will live eternally.
Man will become gods. Of course, the elite will become gods.
And have eternal life.
And you tend to wonder, how a mark of the beast will be the number of man. Right? Man exalting himself to God. Man thinking he can control all things. And so it's very interesting. But aside from that, yes, we're still in the season of Antichrist, and it is moving fast. We're watching the digital. While this whole thing with Pelosi in Taiwan was happening, nobody realized that there was an executive order signed by Biden to bring in digital currencies quicker in America. Same thing as Justin Trudeau just recently did. People need to wake up and see what the left hand's doing behind the back. This whole thing, that's what they're bringing in. The digital system will be here, and they want it here no later than 2025, which is not far off, folks. I mean,
I know.
You're not going to be able to buy or sell. They're talking about it constantly. So it's not a conspiracy theory.
What does the church do in our closing minutes? What do we as Christians do? What should our response be? How do we deal with this?
First of all, we've said it before, right? We need to have intentional communities of like-minded people. There are so many, and the churches are divided also. But those who can see what's going on need to at least be communicating with others who can see as well. Look, our weapons and our warfare are not carnal. They are spiritual. You want to get a gun for home self-defense, that's fine, but you're not going to be Rambo. All right. What you're looking to do is you're looking to prepare for martyrdom. Prepare spiritually to meet Christ, because what's coming is so enormous. It truly is a beast rising up out of the sea, the land. And this beast will encompass the whole world. And you will not be able to move. You will not be able to say anything, think anything, go anywhere apart from permission. And those of us who will not bow the knee will be persecuted. We can run and hide, and God promises his divine help to the church in that day, in those days. I think we're fast approaching that. But even if we're not, to be spiritually minded and to be spiritually fortified is a most necessary thing right now for all of us. This isn't a game anymore. This is here. And easy Christianity is over. Gone.
And Dr. Gahles, our time is just about up for today's program, and I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for you taking time from your busy schedule to join us for these two programs. We had Dr. Gahles on yesterday, Monday, and again today. And Dr. Gahles, we'll get you back on hopefully maybe next week or the week after. Let's see how our schedules can be worked out. I know it's not easy during this busy time. I want to thank all of you that take the time to listen to the program Truth to Ponder. I want to thank the many of you that have been recently sending me emails. And just so you know, I have a direct email address that only I get. Nobody else reads them except me. And that address is bob@truth2ponder.com. That's bob@truth2ponder.com. I would love to hear from you, where you're listening, how you're listening. Maybe you listen as a podcast. Maybe you listen to the radio broadcast. I'd love to know how you're listening. It's very important. As I've been mentioning the last several weeks, this has been a difficult summer for Truth to Ponder. And it has been a really, really tough time keeping the bills paid. And your help is appreciated now more than ever. Look, I understand the economy is going bad. We have a president, we have a Senate, and we have a House of Representatives here in the United States that lies to you. They come up with a phony Inflation Reduction Act that is nothing more than a spend and tax bill that'll come after small business and even low-level wage earners that can't afford to fight back. We need to be praying for our nation. We also need to be standing as a witness. If you believe in our ministry, would you consider writing a check payable to Ancient Word Radio? That's Ancient Word Radio. The mailing address is Truth to Ponder, 5753 Highway 85 North. That's 5753 Highway 85 North. Number 3248. That's number 3248. And the city is Crestview. Crestview, Florida, 32536. Once again, 5753 Highway 85 North, number 3248. Crestview, Florida, 32536. You can also support us from our website.
This has been Truth to Ponder with Bob Bierman. To find out more, visit our website, truth2ponder.com. That's truth2ponder.com. Truth to Ponder, shining the light of truth in a darkening world.